So we had 10 sessions this week. Yesterday, we had a session on our newest area of focus, on the environment. And what we've done this week is tried to find topics that, based on my conversations as I've gone around to all of the clubs, we think are of interest to the members.
Bruce.
Yesterday, the environment was the newest. Today's isn't. Today's is something that we've been living with since 1979, 1985. But it is our highest priority. And of course, you know, it's polio. We've all heard these numbers. 350,000 cases a year of wild polio virus in 1985. 22 in 2017. 2 so far this year. Pakistan and Afghanistan. And we know that it's going to take billions of dollars more to finish the job. Billions of dollars on top of the $2.1 billion that Rotarians and clubs have already contributed, on top of the $4 billion from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and on top of the $6 billion that has come from the governments of the country, the governments of the world. So when I go to visit clubs, I'm often asked, why is this so hard? And how much longer is this going to take? The answer is, it'll take as long as it needs to. We have come so far. The work that has been done to get us to where we are today is so massive that we will not waste that effort. And today's speaker will talk about what it took to eradicate polio in the second largest populated country in the world. So let's get started. Tom, I wanted to make sure that I introduced Tom Zengler, the president of the Rotary Club of, where am I this morning? Libertyville Sunrise. I haven't done that yet, but I'm very appreciative of your flexibility and to allow us to do this morning. So the polio vaccine was introduced the year I was born, 1955. The last recorded case of polio in the United States was in 1979. My only knowledge of polio came from Mr. Gable, who was at the end of my street. He contracted it as a child. But when past Mr. Governor Rick Rifkin gave Anne-Marie and I the opportunity to go on a friendship exchange to India, and that was going to include participating in a subnational immunization trip, we signed up right away. We knew that Rick and his wife Helen had organized 2 previous immunization trips to India and to Nigeria. Rick reminded me that given the trajectory of the effort, there may be very few opportunities left to do immunization, thank goodness. We were grateful to have the opportunity. So to moderate today's session, I'd like to introduce my friend, District Governor Rick Rifkin.
Thank you, Governor Lyle, Rotarians, and Libertyville Sunrise Club, and everybody that's ship and sea and whatever on that gadget there. I think a couple of things to put Rotary's polio immunization effort in perspective. As Governor Lyle mentioned, it started in 1979 with a pilot program to immunize 6 million children in the Philippines. And Rotary International President Jim Bomar was there to put the first dose in a child's mouth. And as he squeezed 2 drops of vaccine into a little girl's tongue, he saw tears in her mother's eyes. And he felt a pull on his trouser leg. Looking down, he saw one of the crawlers who had been paralyzed by polio. "Thank you," the boy said. "Thank you, thank you." He paused as if to remember the next word, Rotary. Then he lifted his withered arm from the dirt and pointed to the baby that Omar had just given the vaccine to. My sister, he said with a smile. Nobody knew it then, but that little girl was to have the most profound effect on the future course of Rotary. Fast forward to January of 2011, and another little girl in West Bengal State in India named Roxar, the last recorded case of the wild polio virus in India, January 2011. Our guest this morning is from India. Governor Lyle and Anne Marie had the chance to meet him when they visited Gujarat State a couple of years ago. Dr. Jayant Sastry has been a Rotarian since 1983, since 1985. 1987, he joined Rotary. He's been involved with Rotary's polio eradication program in India since 1995. But you're tired of listening to me, so let's introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Jayant Sastry from India, live on Zoom.
Thank you. And am I audible?
You're very good.
Yes.
So thank you for the nice introduction, sir. And good morning to you all. I am here talking to you all because of the other guy on your screen. He is the one who came to India, found our program very interesting, and he found that it was something impossible that the Indians are doing. Yes, slide again. Just a minute. Okay, I belong to District 3060, which is on the western side of India, and I have borrowed Dr. Lyle's star and put it on my city, that is Vadodara. I will be speaking on, after the introductory talk, I'll talk to you on polio vaccination drive, then the Rotary involvement in polio eradication, and then the impact of Rotary on polio eradication. As far as the introduction is concerned, you just heard what happened to the children in Philippines. That prompted Rotary International to take up Polio Plus program in a very big way. And it was taken in such a big way that in 1988, the World Health Assembly targeted the year 2000 as the year we should end polio from this earth. Seeing the number of cases on your screen from 1985 to 1999, we reduced the number in India from 17,000 per year to 1995, that is 3,000 per year. And then the race to reach the last child began, which I would say was the beginning of the end. Yeah, so I was talking about the beginning of the end of polio in India. And Rotary did not have confidence in Indian population. The government did not have confidence in Rotary. So 3 cities in India took up the onus of giving confidence that pulse polio immunization can be done. That is, on one single day, every 5-year-old, less than 5-year-old child in India would be given the vaccine on one particular day. So we came up with building up the Pulse Polio program, the pilot of which started right in my own apartment, this is, and in collaboration with the government, the polio program in 1994 and 95 was started. The first one was in Delhi, the second one was in Udaipur, and if anybody can read the local language, it is right on the screen. It is 26th of March and 7th of May 1995 when I started the program in Vadodara, that is my city. And the impact of the program was that all the Rotarian spouses, Rotaractors, children took part in the preparation of the material to be put in every booth all over the city. And we started the awareness campaign on the ground and in the media in such a way that international students from USA and all Rotary volunteers cooperated to give such a result that both the days 97% of our target was achieved and 120,000 children were vaccinated on that day. Rotary, Government of India, the public got the message. We were very confident that Rotary could help in eradicating polio. So in 1995 itself, as you can read, the trustees of the Rotary Foundation said that eradication of polio is and must remain the premier goal of Rotary International and its foundation until the world eradicates polio from the face of the earth. This pilot program was only in 3 cities of India. Now the Rotary program began all over India. We finished in May 1995, the second polio immunization day, as you read. And already at the end of 1995, the whole of India was ready with the Pulse Polio immunization program. And in India, the first NID was in December 1995. So what did Rotary do at that time? Out of these 4 pillars of eradication program, I'm not going to touch upon the routine immunization program, which is a very robust and active program all over the country. So I would talk about these 2 programs, which are going to be the main focus of today. And in that, PPI, that is the Pulse Polio Immunization Program for the National Immunization Days and the Sub-National Immunization Days will be described. So what was Rotary's role in this? First of all, finance and support in the organization. How many volunteers, how many Rotarians, how many polio drops are required, how many cold chain booths are required. That was organization. And in social mobilization, whenever the NID was declared, that would always be on a Sunday. So on the previous Wednesday or Thursday or both the days, rallies with banners would come up in the roads of Vadodara with a lot of sloganeering, which would immediately attract the local news media, and we would get in the evening news, the whole of Vadodara would come to know that this is how we are going to organize the polio booths. Yeah. So if social messages on prominent landmarks and on all the malls of parking places of all the malls, we spread the message that polio day has come. The next Sunday, you have to take your child for the polio vaccine. In advocacy, if the President of India himself at early in the morning at 8 o'clock gives 2 drops of polio, and this news is flashed in all the TV channels, and big Bollywood actors come and give the drops, the whole of India would come to know that today is NID. For some people, there was especially in the lower socio-economic strata, the religious heads played a lot of role. They would either encourage or discourage this vaccine program. Fortunately for us, most of the religious leaders were helpful. They came and organized our meets, gave talks, and the next problem was to give some meaning to this, to the Rotary, to the medical profession by the Rotary clubs. In the upper strata of society in India, people thought that taking routine immunization would be enough. And because of that, most of the people in the upper strata of society would avoid going to the booths for public booths for the polio immunization, which was very well described and explained to by us Rotarians. This is the meet in which the Pediatric Association chairman, the local government chairman, and our own Rotarian past RI director Manoj Desai is sitting. And we came to the conclusion that the signature of the Indian Medical Association and the Rotarians on behalf of the Rotarians of India, we took a pledge to come ahead and cooperate in the polio immunization campaign. This helped us in a great way in helping the upper strata of society also to start cooperating with us. Now, regarding transportation, it was very easy to give advocacy. It was very easy for social mobilization. But on the day of the real immunization, we needed transportation, which is very crucial for the distances seen in India. As you see, there is an urban health center, and from the urban health center, we have 34 in Vadodara itself. And from the health centers, the vaccines, the vaccinators, the cold chain maintenance, the doctors, the supervisors were taken to and fro to the polio immunization booths from the urban health centers. And this required transportation, and all Rotaries since the past 20 years, each and every 30 of the 34 urban health centers in Vadodara are being managed by giving transportation to these centers. I'm sure that all over the country, the same thing is happening. I am giving you the photographs and the information of the local chapter. Now coming to reporting of all AFP. First of all, you must know what is acute flaccid paralysis. That means that if the polio virus causes flaccid paralysis and it is no longer in existence in that area, the cause for AFP is something else. So AFP surveillance should definitely show where the polio virus is and where it is not. So the pediatricians and the family physicians play a lot of role in this, in the sense that they immediately report the case of paralysis to the government, and the government takes the stool sample and finds out whether it is polio or not. Once AFP surveillance says there are no cases of polio, even in this flaccid paralysis, it could be any other viral infection or anything else, an accident or anything, but it is not polio. So after doing all this eradication work, what impact did it have? Immediately, everyone thanked Rotary. The impact was goodbye polio, thank you Rotary. And you can imagine, that by November 97 itself, my city was eliminated of polio. And after 3 years, after 2000, we did not see any any case. So it was called eradication and after elimination. So from 1995, as you see the graph, as the polio immunizations took place, as the national immunizations increased in tempo and in number, by 2011, on the 11th of January, we saw the last case of polio in India, and the graph touched zero from 2012. And this is the red letter day for the Indians in Rotarians in India, 26th and 27th March 2014. After 3 years of not a single case in India, the Southeast Asia Regional Certification Commission gave a certificate to the entire region as polio free. Now, regarding what would be the case in future for the polio eradication program, we see that the program is there and the NIDs will continue. The national even though there 10 years have gone and not a single case of polio has occurred, even then the national immunization days continue. The only reason is because we have a more than 2,000 miles long border with a country which has still not eradicated polio. So the porous borders are between US and other countries also. Similarly, we have porous borders where a polio virus can just drop in. So we cannot be complacent. We cannot remain idle. Any day the virus can come into India. And NIDs are all over India, and where they feel that the routine immunization program has been a little slack, or they feel that there is a lot of migratory population from other states, sub-NIDs are done. These sub-NIDs are local immunization programs in the high-risk areas. This is an example of one of the sub-NIDs we did when on 18th of November 2018, a group of Rotary Friendship Exchange Rotarians asked the District 3060 to first name the sub-NID date, and then they planned the visit here. Thanks to Dr. Lyle, his team saw what in reality what the program is. And during these days, we struck up a good friendship, and he said, my goodness, this is mind boggling. How can you immunize 45,000 children that day we did, and within no time? And he was asking me as a pediatrician, and I had told him that I'm very sorry. I thought that in 1985, when the program was launched, I thought it was a bit of a dream which would never come true. As a pediatrician, I never thought, because pediatricians think from the mind and Rotarians think from the heart. So the heart prevailed over the mind. And today we have 10 years of no polio. Today, the last NID has occurred on the 31st of January in spite of corona and the prevalent viral infections. 159 million children have been vaccinated in over 100,000 booths all over India. with the help of 1.4 million vaccinators, supervisors belonging to the government, to the WHO, and of course, to Rotary. These are the last cases seen across the Americas, the Western Pacific region, and Europe. But this was the case we saw in 11th January 2011. And somebody also named her, she is Ruxar. And at the end, I would like to say something about after polio eradication what? After polio eradication, there is a continuous process of polio corrective surgeries. More than 10,000 surgeries have taken place in more than 100 camps. They are polio's corrective surgery camps. And those people who are suffering from polio have to live with this condition with the physical, mental, emotional, financial, social, and psychological impact. We as Rotarians now are thinking of making a group to help these people. They are called PPS, those who are suffering from the post-polio syndrome. And of course, as Cliff Doctorman in 1992 had said, most of the people do things in their lifetimes to bring them joy. But the Rotarians of India should know joy more than 100 million times, for they can feel in their hearts the smile of each child who will not fear polio because Rotary cared. What an extraordinary gift you are giving to a whole generation. This was said in 1992, and his dream has now come true. Now we do not have a single case of polio in India. What I have given you, the photographs and all this are local. This belongs mostly to Baroda in cooperation with the other clubs of Baroda. But the same thing one can extrapolate to the whole of India. All Rotary clubs, all Rotarians, all government officials all over India are doing the same thing. With this, I put an end to my talk because I want questions. If there is no time for questions today, I have put my Gmail address and my WhatsApp number for anybody to come ahead and ask questions about polio.
Thank you, Dr. J. That was very enlightening. It certainly brought back some memories for me of the NID that we did in 2012 in Uttar Pradesh. For the Rotarians that are in the room, any questions for Dr. J about polio in general, polio in India, and his experiences?
Yes. Dr. J, I see you're a member of the Rotary Doctors Fellowship, which is very nice. Is India using the new type 2 oral polio virus?
The type 2 oral polio virus has been stopped since a very long time, more than 10 years. The type 2 was the first eradicated. It has now not been used for the past 10 years because not a single case in the past 10 years or the past 10 years before 2011, there was no case of polio because of type 2. The cases were more severe and more of type 1 and 3.
The World Health Organization approved a new virus, a new vaccine last year. That's what I was referring to.
I think Robert was referring to the monovalent vaccine rather than the bivalent type 1, type 3. So is India now using the monovalent type 1 oral polio vaccine?
Yes, it is using monovalent type 1. And okay. Now I don't know whether I should divulge into this also, but there is something called vaccine-derived polio. Yes, so we have type 1 oral polio vaccine, and nowadays because polio has been eradicated for the last 10 years, we are phasing out the oral polio vaccine because that itself can cause polio in an compromised child. So we are now going into only injectable polio vaccines, except for the sub-NIDs and the very poor socioeconomic class of people where they may not be able to afford the injectable vaccine.
Okay, Dr. J, we have a question from John here in the room.
Dr. J, was there some resistance to getting vaccine in any sectors of the country? And how did you
I cannot
combat
hear
that?
you. I cannot hear
Question
you.
was there any resistance to getting the vaccine in any parts of the country, and how was that overcome by the government and the Rotarians?
Oh yes, that is a very valid and a good question. One of the main reasons for the delay in the polio eradication, which could have happened 5 years before 2011, is that there was a very bad resistance because the religious leaders went on and said that this polio virus is to make the guys impotent, so the next generation is destroyed. And to get that out of their minds, it took nearly 2 years. That is why we took help of the religious leaders, not politicians, not actors, not Bollywood superstars. We went to the religious leaders. One of the slides in that is of a religious leader who is giving a talk on nothing would happen to you guys if this polio vaccine is taken. If you go back to the slides, you will see that there is a person with a red kind of shawl on his shoulder. He is a religious leader and he is telling everyone not to look after this kind, listen to such nonsense from other people.
Okay. Any other questions?
Now the resistance
Folks
has
on Zoom,
gone.
Or did I hear a question from Zoom? Let me take a second because I want to talk about that sub-national immunization day that Ambry and I did. And I want to first, again, thank Rick because Rick had planned this whole trip. Unfortunately, Rick was unable to go on the trip at the last minute. And he missed this wonderful opportunity to meet Dr. J in person. We gathered that morning, it was a Sunday morning, at a hospital. Dr. J first did a presentation to us on some of the same information you've seen today, what the history was and what the challenges were facing us. When we left that conference room and went out into the courtyard, we were overwhelmed by what was there. The hundreds of people, the hundreds of vehicles, the boxes of vaccine, the maps, the plans, the work that was done to do 45,000 children that morning. Now, it would take a few days. There would have to be some follow-up in some of these cases, Dr. J, as I recall, because not all the children could be found, but there were markings on the buildings if the map and the census identified the children there or that they weren't there. We then went out into the field, gave a few vaccinations ourselves. It wasn't anything like when you did the national immunization. It was more just a taste of what was there. But when you saw how much work went into them, the military precision of everything to do that, it's 45,000 kids. There were 165 million children under the age of 6 in India. And Dr. J, when you said that in January, immunization immunized 159 million children again?
Yes.
It's overwhelming. So when what you gave us that day, what you gave Anne-Marie and I believe actually that Chris von Spivak and Sheena Privet, who were on that trip, were also on the call, so I hope that you're there. We were so overwhelmed. We were so impressed by the actions that were taken there that it's something that will stick with us forever. And those pictures of Anne-Marie holding that little boy after she's given him the drops, and he has this happy face sticker on, and he's got his sucker because the kids all got suckers and candy, which was part of the attraction. That's one of my favorite photos of my life. So, Dr. J, it was a wonderful experience, and I'm just again so grateful for all of your work over the years to lead us to that point, and your continued passion to make sure that the end is in sight.
Thank you. May I add something?
Go ahead.
I would like to invite Rotarians from District 6440 again, whenever an sub-NID takes place, so that whenever you are free and you make a Rotary Friendship Exchange or just visit India. I don't know whether Bill Bordwell is with you now. He stayed in my house. I can give you home hospitality.
Yeah.
I would welcome you to a home hospitality and welcome you to a sub-NID to see the impact of what Rotary does.
Dr. J, I know Rick's got a question. So you are suffering through the COVID-19 pandemic. What did Rotary learn? What did the country learn because of the polio work that has assisted, helped at all dealing with COVID-19?
I didn't get you.
So polio, India did so much to eradicate polio.
Yes.
And learn so many lessons. How did those lessons then help as you're dealing with COVID-19?
Well, the same thing as both are viral infections, but one is from the oral route, from the things we eat and drink, that is polio, and the virus is through the air and through our fingers and fingers going touching our face and mouth and eyes. So the difference in the infectivity is there, but because of COVID-19 infection very rampant in India, it has not had any negative impact on the NID which we did on the 31st of January, because 159 million children to be inoculated on one day is not a small amount of work compared to the lockdowns and the social distancing which we had to undergo during that time. Fortunately, during January, it was the time of a very low first wave, and the second wave had not yet begun. So there was a time when the corona cases were also at the lowest.
We have a question from Mark Gibson.
Yes, Dr. J, thank you so much for your work and your presentation. So in the switch to injectables, a number of us are medical in Rotary, but most are not. What role will non-medical Rotarians be able to play in the future with the injectable focus?
Well, that it would be mostly to increase the routine immunization, because when NIDs come, NIDs won't come in injectables. NIDs will come only in oral polio vaccines. And after the neighboring countries, only 2 countries are left now. After the neighboring countries show 3 years of no polio, probably the whole world will get rid of the oral polio vaccine. This is what, so every year, the World Health Organization, all the health people are going to save to the tune of $5 billion US, which we are spending today on oral polio vaccine. Imagine the savings when only 2 countries get rid of polio and the world certifies the entire earth as polio free. From that day, there will be no NIDs, there won't be any oral polio vaccine, and the entire world will switch to injectable polio vaccines.
We have another question from Sheena Pravet.
Hi, Doctor. Nice
Hi.
to see you again. Earlier, you said that the subnational immunization days, or our opportunities to provide the oral vaccine. You also mentioned that generally that's because they're provided to, I think you referred to them as like the lower strata, and that there was a cost differential between
Yes.
that and the injectables. And I'm just curious, 2 questions. First is that, what prevalence of, vaccine acquired polio do we see? Is that declining? And then second, what is that cost differential?
Yes, there is something like, I would say, 1 in 5 million doses that the vaccine itself will cause polio. 1 in 5 million. So it is still the cheaper and the more conducive way of eradicating polio. One cannot say that because vaccine-induced polio can occur, I will use only injectable to eradicate polio. That will never work. And the cost of the vaccine is the onus of the government. If the government prioritizes tuberculosis, AIDS, corona as their priority expenditure, polio will come low down. So till polio becomes a priority, the government won't buy vaccines, injectable polio. Till the government does not buy injectable polio, we will need to continue oral polio vaccine, even if theoretically there is a possibility of getting vaccine-derived polio. Got my point, Sheena?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Dr. J, we've enjoyed so much your presentation today, and we want to thank you again for being with us today. We do have the pleasure of, assuming that this works, we will be making a donation in your name to the End Polio Now Fund of the Rotary Foundation.